Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
This is Steiny.
Oh, yeah!
I want to discuss this story from like a month and a half ago because there's a second part to it. Now, Middleborough, Massachusetts, there was a 12-year-old boy. He was sent home because he came to school wearing a shirt that said, "There are only two genders." They send him home, and his parents are pissed. They feel like their son is being wrongfully called out and ostracized because the point that the kid is making, if you can have all your pride and you're this and you're that and you're pro everything, why can't I show my ideals here? And he ends up going in front of the school board basically saying that you're honoring the rights of some and not the rights of all, and you're basically trampling on my free speech and civil liberties here for somebody else's.
Is the school kind of saying it's hateful speech in a way? Like
They said that it was not inclusive. Some time went by, and he did it again. Only this time, like a smartass, he came to school with the shirt and a piece of tape over the word "to" and wrote "censored."
Gotcha, bitch!
Okay.
So the message itself,
Was
to kind of make a
incomplete.
protest.
Just like if back in our day you would have had a swear word or something that would have been censored, or the parental explicit advisory logo over it or something like that, right?
Yeah, I once wore a Slipknot shirt to school, and I went to, to Tino Gray's Catholic school. On the back was the barcode that said, "People equal shit."
Yep.
So I put a square of duct tape over the H and the I, and I was nervous all day I was going to get busted. And people kept trying to take the tape off. They're like, "Hey, there's tape on your shirt." I'm like, "Fucking leave it."
It's there for a reason.
Yeah. Now, there's a point to why I'm bringing this story up. It's not the whole two genders argument. I don't want to get into a fucking anti-trans pissing match. It's not about free speech. What this says to me is that this kid's parents have indoctrinated him with their ideals. It's not a matter of, I'm telling you what I think and imparting my wisdom. Decide for yourself. This is what I believe. You will believe what I believe, and I'm not going to introduce you to any other outside ideas because don't you dare deviate from the ideas that I subscribe to. You get kids like this at the age of 12 that are putting on a protest, basically, and then going before the school board, writing a letter that sounds like it was his dad that authored the motherfucking thing. This is the parents putting their ideas in the kid's head, and I think that is lazy parenting and semi-dangerous.
That was kind of my first thought, was this kid and his protest and his free speech. Those aren't 12-year-old, 6th grader type topics.
Well, maybe not for us, because one other thought I had is, well, maybe if it's not the parents and it is really him, think of how different being 12 is now versus when we were 12.
Yeah,
and you got 4 years on me, right? Yeah. You're turning 46 this year.
Yes.
So you got 5 years on me.
Yep.
Okay, so the difference between 1994 and you were 12 in 89.
I would have been 12 in 89, yeah.
So think about that. No internet, no cell phones, no social media, no 24-hour news cycle.
No cordless phones yet. Like, everything was still corded phones even.
And it wasn't pride this, pride that, trans everywhere, fucking jamming the alphabet people agenda down people's throats.
The biggest trans thing you had back then was the movie Tootsie in like 84, 83, where he goes and dresses as a woman to get a job.
Bosom Buddies.
Oh, yeah, Bosom Buddies, yeah. Tom Hanks, one of his first gigs.
And Peter Scolari, and they dress as chicks to live in an apartment building to get cheaper rent. So this harkens back to a conversation I had with my friend Little Lindsay a few months back, where there was some girl in the neighborhood that lived in a house with parents that always had, like, Trump signs and shit in their yard.
Okay.
And she felt like the kid, who I believe is like 10 or 11, was parroting all the same bullshit as her parents. And Lindsay's thing is, it drives me nuts that these redneck assholes that live around us, because they're out in the sticks a bit, their kids are thumping the same fucking ideals. How often do you have a kid come out of a house that has the exact same value system, moral compass, political values and stances, and religious beliefs as the parents?
Well,
Identical.
it probably happened more in the past than we were ever willing to admit, considering how tight-knit communities used to be in the past, right? But it is interesting, you know, with the way kids rebel and the way kids kind of want to do their own thing. Yeah, that it's that indoctrinated in these kids.
Because if I were to take my kid to a school event and there would be a kid wearing a Trump shirt, I'd have to assume it's because the parents vote Republican and are Trump thumpers.
Right. Not because they're on the other side of the fence and they're just letting little Timmy do whatever he wants.
Yeah. It's ironic that you chose Timmy as a name. And then, of course, you know, part of why Tim is not in that seat anymore is the Trump love. And connecting dots accidentally.
Yep.
So think about now, like Mormon country. Mormons are very strict. You are raised in the church. The wives, the women are responsible for educating the kids. They are expected to teach the same ideals to the offspring, and if you don't do that, you are condemned.
Oh, okay.
And another example I would give would be the Amish.
Mm-hmm.
You're expected to stay with the faith in the community. You get to go for Rumspringa when you're 18 and see the outside world, which to me really fucking... it deserves respect that they're willing to let their kids go out and say, we raised you this way, we want you this way, but you're an adult now, go fucking see what the world has to offer, and if you want it, take it. If you don't, come back, it's fine. They're like...
Yeah, but I mean, is that how strong they believe in their indoctrination? You could look at it that way. Like, oh, we've really got these kids, and, you know, a lot of them come back because they are so indoctrinated to that way of life, for better, for worse.
Yeah, I would think that'd be overwhelming to just go out in the world and it's electricity and phones and internet porn and booze and drugs and
right and
sex.
And, you know.
So now, what when you're a parent, do you do other than, and this is just my stance, because the girls have asked me, why don't you believe in God? And I've explained it to them. I'm like, I grew up in a family that went to church. It was expected that I would still go to church. Your grandmother was fucking livid when I quit the church. She threatened to throw me out of the house because I was telling people why I quit the church. And she's always expecting everybody to do the same as her. It's a standard that she refuses to bend from.
A tradition? I mean...
It's not even a tradition. It's just like she's holding that Catholic guilt over your head, saying, you will worship Jesus, you will go to church. And she said to the girls... if you don't have God in your life, you have problems.
Oh, yeah.
Do I? Because, I mean, whether or not I go to church, I'm pretty sure none of the shit that goes on in my life right now is going to fucking change.
Right. Everybody has their different perspective. I've never been a believer. I've never been a theist. It's interesting. Now, the foundation of mine comes from my... mom's side of the family never being really religious. They were farmers. I think they were kind of Lutheran, but never really practicing, you know.
Yeah.
I think my grandma had some problems with the church, right? So she was never forced to go. And then my dad, he was raised Catholic, very similar. Catholic school, classic 1960s, getting beat with the rulers type stuff. And
the good old days.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about it, the Catholic Church, right? And he absolutely hated it. And he got... you know, he loved science. He loved astronomy, and he loved all kind of these theories about the foundation of the universe. And so he was more of a science guy that he shared with me. And so I jokingly tell people, science is my God. I believe in critical thinking. I believe in proving things. And, you know, just because we can't explain it doesn't mean it's divine intervention or it's proof that there is this complexity in the universe and it had to be a creator. No, it means we just haven't figured it out yet. So that's what I explained to like my son. I think he's more on my side of things. Got him baptized. His grandparents on that side are very religious. He's got a lot of religious influences. So it's interesting because what happens, how do you explain homes that are split, you know, where there are different theologies? Or my situation with my son, raised with parents on different sides of the theology spectrum.
I think that if you're going to be in this day and age with all the information that's out there, you're really fucking setting your kids up to be almost radicalized eventually. And it seems like it's more religious people than anyone that are riding that hardline stance, follow what the Bible says and family values.
And denying
Christian
science.
morals. Yeah. You get to that point and you're stunting their intellectual growth. You want them to develop into a well-rounded being. And you can't really do that in college anymore because they're kowtowing to the egos of the uber left and the woke mob that don't want to hear opposing viewpoints. Well, you should be starting at a much younger age with your kids. Like I'm starting at like 8 with them is when I started telling them stuff that I believe. And then I let them ask questions as long as they do it in like a respectful way. And they've never been mocking about it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You know, I learned that the way my parents did it is they would mock and ridicule and kind of laugh at the theists. And I'd like, well, yes, I think some of the beliefs are funny, but I'm not going to mock them to their face. You know what I mean? That it just invites problems.
Well, and now the juice at her middle school, some kid was wearing the same fucking "there are only 2 genders" shirt.
Oh, so now it's
Nothing
a thing.
happened.
What?
Okay.
Nobody said anything. Maybe because it was the end of the year. But she's like, oh, someone at school is wearing that same shirt. Like, does that bother you? She's like, well, you know, I'm an LGBTQ ally. I'm like, yeah, and you say you're also a lesbian, but we'll see how that goes in a few years. Totally different point, but I'm like, do you not think that he should have the right to wear that shirt? Because if you want to wear a pride shirt, as long as he's not running around with a fucking t-shirt with swastikas and white power on it.
Well, there's this fine line of hate speech, right? You mentioned swastikas and other stuff like this and other hateful phrases, terminology, imagery, things like that. But what if somebody's going uber sensitive on this, like we all seem to do nowadays, and somebody's saying, well, that pride shirts hurts my feelings, or that obviously there's 2 gender things hurts my feelings, or it's insensitive. But I mean, it's just anybody can claim offense. I'm offended by that. I'm offended by this. So what, we're down to nobody has any individuality anymore? We're not
Everybody
allowed to
just
express
wears
anything?
light gray sweatshirts and sweatpants all the time, even
Back
in the
to
summer.
the uniform. Yep.
It looks like fucking juvenile hall boot camp shit and shoes with no laces.
They can't hang themselves? Is that why?
Now, have you ever noticed the people that live across from me in the gray house with the brightly colored orange van and the black truck?
I only saw them out like once or twice at like a birthday party here or something like that.
Okay, so they have a bunch of like pro-Jesus bumper stickers and shit. And then there's another family like 3 houses over that are clearly Christian also. And I don't really talk to those people because I'm not going to have anything in common with them. I'm a guy that writes all kinds of dirty shit in chalk on my fucking driveway. Did you notice what I wrote on the driveway tonight?
I did not see it, no.
Okay, I made a point to write ilovehappiness.com. Say it fast.
I love a penis and cum.
Yep, so I thought I'd put that out there and see when the kids come home on Friday if they notice it. It's not going to rain, but I'm trying to indoctrinate them with a sense of humor and appreciation for laughing at life. But these kids, I hate to stick on the anti-religious sounding theme, but I was raised Democrat and I'm a centrist.
Sure.
But my mom was always, oh, if you vote for Republicans, you might as well go live somewhere else because they're terrible.
As a Catholic, I suppose, yeah. Catholics are one of those groups that usually gets dumped on by the right for some reason.
Yeah, because they're not, pro-Jesus enough.
Yeah, or their abortion beliefs aren't strict enough.
Yeah. And again, it's like all these kids that are growing up now that are like this kid with the t-shirt in Massachusetts. Living in a home where, now let me do it in a Massachusetts fucking accent.
There you go.
I don't know what's wrong with all these goddamn transes, but that shit is driving me up a fucking wall. It is wicked retarded. You do not, if you have a penis, get to be a lady. That's bullshit.
Unless it's Halloween.
So I just want to reiterate that I came from a home where deviating was not necessarily welcomed, and to this day, it still grinds my mother's gears that I am all kinds of different from her in terms of faith and politics. She's just such a hardliner. And I didn't try to tie this into my mom, but it's like you think about where you come from.
Oh, yeah.
Because
The Beast.
her dad was Muslim. He wanted her to be Muslim. Shit, he even asked her if she wanted him to arrange a marriage. he's from Palestine, and yeah, like old worldly like that, Arab. And there's pictures of when her mom got married to him. Her mom is not Muslim. She's a white woman who's half German. And she was wearing a fucking burqa.
Why? How? I mean, just interesting match?
I don't even know what the attraction was. He was way older than her. She was his third wife. Or fourth? Maybe fourth. Oh. It's been a few years. He's
My
been
guess
dead
would
for
be
a while.
security then.
Possibly. But again, like when he was having an operation or something, his kids came to visit. And when they met me, I was supposed to play along that we were married. Because if they found out that she had a child out of wedlock and that I had not married her, all hell was going to break loose. I don't think they were going to take me behind the woodshed at the apartment complex and fucking saw my head off with like piano wire or anything, or, you know, stab her to death in her sleep as an honor killing. But still, our child would have been frowned upon for being born out of wedlock. So, again, it's like, let your kids pick their own shit. You can tell them how you feel, but let's not make it our mission to turn our children into carbon fucking copies of ourselves, because you're not going to do them any good when they get out in the world, and the only barometer for deep thought they have is what you've said to them, and somebody comes with a complete 180-degree difference, and they're just like, I don't know how to process this. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
This is Steiny.
And that's the end.